Welcome, and happy Monday to all. Welcome to another episode of Bitcoin Magazine Live. I'm your host, Q, coming to you yet again from Bitcoin Magazine headquarters in Nashville. And I'm joined by my co-host, P. How goes it, P?
As always, it goes fantastically. Although I am still mourning the death of the NIM rockstar. I forget which stage I'm at or even how many there are, but we had a wonderful funeral for the NIM over the weekend, Bitcoin Park, and I'm still processing. So that's where I am, my friends. How about you?
I too am mourning Rockstar, Uncle Rockstar, known to many, not to me. He was not my uncle, but I tried to get him to adopt me multiple times. He wouldn't, but alas, I accepted his death very quickly. I know, P, you were having such a hard time. You were kind of stuck on the bargaining phase for some while. And I truly hope, Odell, wherever you are, if you're listening, you have moved on from anger for your sake and everyone's. But we got a jam-packed episode today, so let's dive right into it. We are going to be joined. Who's our guest today, P? I don't have my calendar in front of me. Otherwise, I'd know that it is.
It is. I don't want to dox him if he's not if he's going by his NIM. Chris, who are we? What NIM? What name is this person going by?
I'll go by his Twitter name because that's what he publicly puts out. B for Bacon 1. He is a guy that works at Voltage. So we are going to be talking about the Lightning Network and all the intricacies of it. He really enjoyed our conversation with Joe Consorti last week, so we can go into it. I'd call him a Lightning Network expert. I know P has worked with him with PlebNet, and he has helped him with setting up not just your node, but many people's nodes. And I've asked him questions about the Lightning Network, so he is a wealth of knowledge.
And I'm realizing Voltage just or responded to our tweet naming him. So Nate is going to be joining us. As Chris said, he is incredibly knowledgeable about the nuts and bolts, the infrastructure of running the Lightning Network. And when we started PlebNet, when around 20 of us got together, he was the person that I could always go to and be like, hey, what does this random setting mean? How does this work? How does that work? And he was always incredibly generous with his time. So very excited to talk to him today about his insights and the things that he is experiencing as a like somebody who's deeply mired in the infrastructure aspect of the Lightning Network today.
All I know is I really, really hope that we don't have to retire another NIM or have another funeral for another NIM, because my emotions cannot handle that. But before we talk to him, let's go ahead and dive into some news and notes. I'll kick things off, but he who shall not be named posted a tweet. Many of you have seen it. I'm just going to come out and say, in the scummiest move by any Ethereum person, any shitcoiner out there, completely doxing Bitcoin Core developers because for whatever reason, he wasn't happy that, I don't know, Bitcoiners didn't have the response that they were expecting. I'm sorry, excuse me, time the fuck out. Why are you doxing anyone, first off? Secondly, are you not listening to the conversations we're even just having on this show, let alone the conversations you're seeing all over Bitcoin Twitter, talking and urging? Like Dylan LeClaire, the first day all the Tornado Cash came out, was pounding the drum here on this show, pounding it all over Twitter, saying, this is very likely to happen to Bitcoin. This is not something to be celebrated. This is very much something to be cautious and be paying close attention to. So I kind of lost the plot a little bit there, but I'm just furious that was the reaction of he who shall not be named, because we will not give you credit. We will not drive you traffic. Go fuck yourself for doing this.
Yeah, and to elaborate a little bit more, as Q said, this is a person who, is very deep in the ETH community, and they basically posted a list or a screenshot instead of sort of being like, hey, this Tornado Cash thing is a real problem. And what we're talking about here with Tornado Cash is a system that is based in Ethereum, which is a shitcoin, of course, but it is a well-implemented protocol that allows people to maintain their privacy, or it aims to help people maintain their privacy on the Ethereum network. And so you can use it to basically obfuscate where your Ethereum is coming from. And this is especially important on Ethereum because Ethereum is not optimized it's not optimized to be sound money. It's not optimized to be private by default. It has a different set of trade-offs that it's making. And so these types of tools are kind of analogous or very similar to systems that exist on Bitcoin, like coin joining and systems like that. And so basically what has happened recently is this privacy preserving tool in the Ethereum network has been sanctioned by the US government. And they've gone way they've done what I would consider to be significant overreach. They've sanctioned the individuals, the software engineers who implemented the code. And then they've been taken off of GitHub. One of them was arrested in the Netherlands recently. And so what this shows is the US government basically isn't able to take traditional actions, and so they're sanctioning them. But it's one of the first times that code has been sanctioned, and so it's very dramatic action, and it has far-reaching implications for the Bitcoin space as well. So Bitcoiners have been super for the most part, supportive of this and being like, hey, this is fucked up. We need to really rally against this type of overreach by the government. And it was just super disappointing to see this specific Ethereum shill being like, hey, here's all the GitHub profiles of the people that have worked on Bitcoin Core. And also, to be fair, this is already public information. So it's not like they went and found their home addresses or anything. They literally just took a screenshot of already public information, which is the Bitcoin Core, contributors page. But it's still disappointing to see that, while most Bitcoiners are sort of working to support this, that people like this are just being shitheads.
We were talking about before the show started, it always seems, the crypto people at large are like, we're all in this together, kumbaya, holding hands. But when the chips are down on the table and things are at, a boiling point, they're willing to stab people in the back to do so. I don't really understand. Maybe he was trying to do this in order. I don't agree with this. This is an egregious fault of his. I don't know if he's just trying to shift blame from them or trying to bring attention elsewhere to get off of the Tornado Cash people. But exactly to what P was mentioning before, something like this could happen to the Samurai team, or Whirlpool is the mixer that they use, or Collaborative, my apologies, or Wasabi, their Wasabi 2.0 client, or then also CoinJoin. But if this happened to Tornado Cash, it's not unlikely that this could happen exactly in the Bitcoin community to those three tools that we have.
And one of the interesting...
Go ahead. Yeah, no,
well,
go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the interesting aspects of this is, Bitcoiners are very focused on, disintermediating the transfer of money. And so this is something that, Samurai Wallet and Wasabi and Join Market, which are sort of the three most well-known collaborative spending or coin joining implementations in Bitcoin, have been talking about for a long time. And Bitcoiners are very, very, very vocal about the issues with Ethereum and how centralized it is. And so this issue with Tornado Cash is just I view this, though it doesn't affect me personally, because I don't fuck around with Ethereum because it's a garbage token. I think that it is potentially has the potential to be a positive. There has the potential to be a positive outcome from this, because I hope that people that are using it come to understand the importance of more privacy focused tools that exist on Bitcoin and like Bitcoin. So.
My final point, and then let's go to the next story. We're not going to do what they do to us. Let them fucking throw little fits and act like children. But if they want to act like this, they want to act like this. We will actually be the leaders of this space and not respond in this way. So I urge you, I hope I meet this person face to face so I can just punch him in the crotch one day. But that's about it. That's all I'm going to do.
It sounds like the opposite of what you just recommended. Like, let's take the high road, but I will not.
We're gonna take the high road.
Not what I do.
We as a group.
Jesus. All right. Well, let's go to the next story. Yeah, which is related to this. So, Mr. Wonderful has he did an interview recently with a bunch of sort of ETH heads and said some stuff that I could not disagree with more. He basically said that if we have to sacrifice this person, that is to say the Tornado Cash developer, in order to create a more positive regulatory environment, I'm good with it. So Chris, you want to roll that clip and then we'll discuss it? Roll the tape.
Don't you think at the end of the day that it's okay to arrest that guy? Why? He's messing with the primal forces of regulation. And maybe he feels he's a crypto cowboy, but he just got a whole bunch of arrows in his back. And if we have to sacrifice him, that's okay, because we want to have some stability in that institutional capital. That's what we've been saying all out. Don't you think at the end of the
So I think this is interesting for a number of reasons. One, it's hilarious that the other people on that on that interview didn't say anything. They were just like, "Oh yeah, okay. I mean, I guess so." But more than that, it is not okay that this person is being sacrificed. As we talk about a lot on this show, privacy is not something that only people that are doing bad things need. It is a right. It is a human right, and it is a narrative attack that the U.S. government and people that support it have been pushing. The idea that like, oh, if you don't have anything to hide, you don't have anything to worry about. Now, we know that that is absolute horseshit because there are data breaches that are happening constantly. So even if you trust the entity that is collecting this information, that is trying to get visibility into and control over your data, or in this case, your financial transactions, even if you, which would be stupid, even if you trust that entity is not going to be around forever. And that entity becomes a honeypot that other people are going to try to hack and often succeed at hacking. So the entire basic frame here that it's okay for governments to be insisting on high level visibility into your financial transactions is total horseshit. And we need to push back on that as strongly as possible. I think that, I think Mr. Wonderful is saying this because he has a stake in these types of systems. And so for him, it's like, it's all about number go up. Whereas for Bitcoiners, it is about freeing ourselves from, central bank controlled apartheid.
Yeah, this ties in, and this would be the last touching point for this story to wrap this all up in a nice bow. So Jerry Brito is the executive director of Coin Center. Coin Center is a lobbying arm that is for the crypto ecosystem at large. A little bit different than the Bitcoin Policy Institute, which focuses solely on Bitcoin. They are crypto at large. So like I said, they pitch and advocate. They're kind of like, I guess, a think tank, as you'd call in the DC area, in order to push pro-crypto legislation in DC. So he just tweeted this morning, here is Coin Center's new full analysis of the Tornado Cash action by the OFAC or OFAC. Bottom line, we believe that OFAC has overstepped its legal authority and we are exploring a court challenge. So basically what this means is they're going after what OFAC is recommending for the sanctioning of this Netherlands-based developer. And obviously they think that they are overstepping their legal jurisdiction. With that being said, this does not halt. The developer was brought into custody and arrested in the Netherlands under OFAC's recommendation, which the U.S. decided to implement. So while, they're doing the best they can at the fastest they can go, it is still, this is still a guy's life that's in jail. And obviously with any legal proceedings, it almost seems like this is guilty before proven innocent versus being innocent before proven guilty. So it's, we talk about, financial inclusion and financial self-sovereignty. In finances, they go after you and then like, oh, we sort it out in court later. But it's like it's a lot different than, oh, you're innocent until proven guilty. It just seems like, there's different rules for different people. I obviously hope that this developer gets out and is not sanctioned for just implementing free and open source software. But this is going to take some time to play through the courts, definitely. Anything else for you guys to add?
I also want to say, because we have to say it, I am not advocating for anybody to break laws or to break sanctions. The issue here is that this is significant overreach. And so I think it is so important that we advocate for the people who are fighting this type of battle. And I'm hoping that in court, it is shown that this is not legal, that there's no legal backing for this.
Yep. All right. Looks like we'll move on to the next story. Q, I think you got this one.
Yep. So my good friend and friend of the show, Anthony Scaramucci, was making his rounds on mainstream media where he brought up that there are some positive signs for Bitcoin and two things that will help prop up Bitcoin demand. Those two things are literally just Fidelity and BlackRock adopting Bitcoin. So like, Mooch, love you, bro, but like, let's do a little bit more digging, which I did for you. So feel free to steal these talking points. Fidelity has $11.8 trillion in asset under management. BlackRock has $9.6 trillion. We're just going to, for simplicity's sake, because I don't want to do 21.4 trillion, we're going to call it 20 trillion combined. A 0.5%, not a 1%, but 0.5% allocation of all of their assets under management into Bitcoin equals $100 billion of Bitcoin in USD, which is about 20 to 25% of the entire market cap. So when we say it's a big deal that companies like Fidelity and BlackRock are getting involved, We are not kidding. So something to keep an eye on. I'd expect even less than a 0.1% allocation, to be quite honest, if they even sort of ramp it up. But again, just something to be aware of, that 1% allocation from each of these companies into Bitcoin would equate to over $2 trillion. Let's go to the next one.
Absolutely. So today marks 51 years ago that Richard Nixon took us off of the gold standard. Now, there's an incredible website. If you haven't seen it, it's WTF happened in 1971. There are so many declines in just across the board in the quality of life, in financial institutions that started around that time. This is a dark and important birthday, so to speak, that I think gives us an opportunity to reflect on how important having sound money is. Because as soon as we went fully off of the gold standard, a lot of things started to decline for the United States. And we talk about it a lot on this show, but being able to have hard money is absolutely critical, especially in this day and age when we start to see inflation ballooning very, very rapidly. Do not believe the inflation is good narratives that, have been going on forever and certainly ramped up into a fever pitch when we went off the gold standard, or in the last pieces that were dismantled by Nixon. But we're now seeing it more and more and more. Don't believe it. Invest in Bitcoin, understand how Bitcoin works, and take control of your own financial future. Chris, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that. We talked about it a little bit before the show.
Yeah, definitely. So I did some digging. So this kind of was like the unravel of the USD being backed by gold. So back in July of 1971, that exact year, France actually had a bunch of IMF loans that were coming due. With that being said, with the U.S. being one of the largest holders of gold after World War II, in order to send the gold to the U.S. and we would hold it in protection of the Germans raiding all of these other nations in Europe, French had a loan that was coming due. So they sent a warship or a battleship to the East Coast in order of the United States in order to claim $191 million in gold required to pay the IMF fund back for the loan that they took out. In doing so, the U.S. was kind of a little panicked because we had to come up with all this gold as we had been not debasing the currency, but we've been changing the money multiplier, which basically means that they were changing the amount of gold that you would get back per U.S. dollar equated to it. So even though we were still on a gold standard, they were debasing it like, oh, if $20 gets you 1 ounce, it actually requires $30 to get you 1 troy ounce. At the time of this happening, it was actually $35, like I said, for 1 troy ounce of gold. So they were buying $191 million of gold in order to do the payment back to the IMF. The UK was unaware of, or the UK was getting nervous, like, oh, what if the US doesn't have enough gold to back all of the paper claims that they had sent out? So at this time, the Prime Minister of the UK called up Nixon and said, hey, we want all of the gold transferred to Fort Knox in New York, and we're going to be sending a ship in the next 2 weeks in order to pick up our payment of gold. So they see France taking their payment of gold. The UK wanted their payment of gold. And it was at this time that Nixon locked himself in a room with a bunch of bankers and said, we need to do something in order to not have the Bretton Woods systems unravel. So this is at this time, the infamous speech on August 15th, 1971, that Nixon went on TV and said, we are temporarily suspending the US dollar's redemption for gold. Obviously, this is a temporary measure, and the famous saying goes, there's nothing more permanent than a temporary government mandate. So to this day, 51 years later, the US dollar is not redeemable for gold in its own currency. P or Q, I don't know if there's anything else you guys want to add to that little bit of history, but this is where we are today.
Now you fucking nailed it. Let's keep going.
All right.
Oh, not me. Sorry.
Do you want anything else to add, Q? All right. So Coinbase can't seem to catch a break lately. So as P brought up in his research, yesterday the S&P Global Ratings lowered Coinbase from a B plus, or I guess a double B plus, to just BB. The rating agency cited the bear market in cryptocurrencies as well as increased scrutiny from the SEC is the reason for lowering their rating of it. Q brought up a really great point, though. This is the same rating agency that said the mortgage-backed crisis back in 08, or the Great Financial Crisis, was no issue, and all of those mortgage-backed securities were AAA rated. So, it's just, I think, Q, what was your point? That everyone's an idiot? Like, Coinbase is an idiot for doing and dabbling in things that are not Bitcoin. And then also the rating agencies don't know what they're talking about because they just give ratings, but they're paid to give these ratings. So if you're not going to take the money and just give them a boosted rating, then then they'll just go elsewhere to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you just have the two sides of the spectrum of complete buffoons and idiots trying to say the other is a complete buffoon and idiot. So I just thought it was funny between that and like seeing a couple of mainstream financial like stock equity type investing platform or publications literally writing the worst may not be over for Coinbase. Oh, like we're not going to, there's yet more downside. So I do not hold shares. I'm not telling you what to do, not financial advice. I actually think the bottom is in for Coinbase because everyone is so bearish on it. If I've ever learned anything, it's that when everyone says it's going one way, it's going to go the other way.
Fair enough.
Let's go to the next story.
Yep, Pia, you got the next story here.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a minor one, but the nation of Uzbekistan announced a large collection of cryptocurrency exchanges are now banned from operating in their country unless they have a license. The exchanges so far include large exchanges like FTX, Binance, Bybit, and Huobi. I think that this is just another example of governments being afraid of their own citizens having access to tools that allow them to legitimately transact outside of those government systems. As Christine Lagarde, famous vampire, said a while back, maybe 2 years back, if there is an exit door, people will take it. And so we need to block all the exits from the traditional financial system and keep people locked in their cells, shitting all over themselves. It's a direct quote. It's disappointing, not surprising, in the same way that we saw Ukraine prevent its own citizens from buying Bitcoin because they wanted to keep all their capital in the country. So even after taking on a ton of Bitcoin loans, or Bitcoin donations rather, to fund the war, they were like, but it's not good for our citizens because we need to keep all the liquidity internal. So we're going to continue to see this keep happening. This is another reason why pushing back against the idea that tools like Tornado Cash, like other privacy-preserving tools, are so important, because without them, it becomes very difficult to, take actions that are counter to what your government deems as acceptable, things that are important for you and your family as individuals.
Q, I think you have some bashing of some politicians. So if you want to tee up the next story, one of Q's favorite pastimes, it seems lately.
So I think this is going to be a consistent thing that's going to get continuously rehashed on this show. And that is just me calling out the hypocrites in DC. I don't affiliate with a party anymore. I don't give a shit if you're a Democrat or a Republican. I don't give a shit what you promise. If you
Wait a sec. I need to interrupt you. Did you say you no longer affiliate with a party? Did we bring him in? Did we bring him into the dark side, or maybe the light side?
I was a long time independent. I've always been an independent until Bernie Sanders was running for president and I had to register as a Dem. That was the only reason I registered as a Dem.
All right. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Keep going, Kim.
Moving on from that. So we've talked a lot on this show about the Inflation Reduction Act, and it did pass over the weekend. There's a little caveat to it, and I'm going to point it out to you now. So Senator Kristen Sinema, the Democrat out of Arizona, single-handedly thwarted her party's longtime goal of raising taxes on wealthy investors. She single-handedly, over the last 6 months, received about $1 million of campaign financing from different banks, VC funds, and different Wall Street institutions. Well, what were these tax cuts that she took out of the Inflation Reduction Act? They were taxes directed at these Wall Street banks, directed at these VC firms, at these institutions. Where do you think they're going to get this money? Because that total amount of spend did not decrease after Kristen Sinema went in and crossed out those taxes to her largest donors. Those taxes are going to get passed on to you and I. So just keep that in mind. Just want to point out the hypocrisy. Fuck you, Kristen Sinema. Fuck you, Nancy Pelosi. And of course, fuck you, Mitch McConnell.
I have nothing to add. I think that was
no political affiliations, man. I said it to everyone. I said it to both sides of the party. Donald Trump, Joe Biden, you're both fucking old buffoons, and I hope neither of you are running for president in 2 years.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Any more? Good.
No. I mean, we got.
Can we do that? We got 3 minutes. Let me just throw this Democratic Republic of Congo story, because
That's the one I was going to say.
This is how stupid Clown World has become. So the Democratic Republic of Congo, the African country that you have not thought about ever. No offense, but like, let's be real. Last time it was really in public eye was when Leonardo DiCaprio was begging, urging everyone to take climate change so seriously. Well, looks like the Democratic Republic of Congo did just that. What are they doing now? Well, they are opening oil and gas licensing auctions up to crypto and carbon firms that would keep fossil fuels in the ground and sell coveted carbon credits instead. What does all of that mean? Instead of selling the right to drill oil in their country, they heard all of the ESG complaints, but instead of doing what Sri Lanka was doing and just complying blindly with everything until they eventually collapsed, Congo has essentially said, okay, you know what? If you guys are telling us that we're going to ruin the world by actually using the resources that are here in our ground, on our soil, tell you what, we'll sell you that. Buy our land from us for the right to not use it, because you Western countries feel so passionately about that. Honestly, I think it's a fucking brilliant move on their part. I think the rest of the Western world is going to have their foot in their mouth when they realize, like, oh shit, like DRC is actually following through on ESG narratives, but we're not. So I thought it was hilarious. It could be very interesting to see how this plays out. There are a couple notable oil and gas developers that are going to be sitting out this auction, almost as though they want to find land to actually drill in. I think it's hilarious. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on this, though.
Yeah, I mean, the entire carbon credit system is a huge scam. It's impossible to effectively audit. It's essentially like the idea that you can offset the harm you're doing to the environment, if you are doing harm, by buying some magical credit, which then is used in some nebulous way to not hurt the environment. I mean, it's absolute horseshit. It is a scam in the truest sense. But I love, as you said, that they are so openly. So I'm going to mispronounce this person's name. I apologize. I think it's Didier Boutambud, who is the Democratic Republic of Congo's hydrocarbons minister. He told the Financial Times, "We're not doing this to destroy the environment," this being drilling. "We're doing it for economic gain." He says, with or without oil, what's important is that we earn. So basically he's saying, like, yeah, we have to turn a profit. We have to be able to earn money that we can then use to ideally improve our country. I'm hoping it's not lining people's pockets, but sadly that happens a lot. And I think it is, I like that there is such transparency around the goals for this. And yeah, fuck it. Why not? If people want to pay them money to not, drill, then they absolutely can. I think we should absolutely expect that land will be drilled on in the future. But if people are dumb enough to buy those credits, then fuck them. They deserve what they get.
I think that this is the real Web3. It's a shitcoin on top of a shitcoin on top of a shitcoin. It's probably a basis of US dollar that they want. They're issuing carbon credits on top, and they said they want crypto. I guess if they accept Bitcoin, it's not, but I'm assuming crypto means just generally broad tokens. So it's a shitcoin on top of a shitcoin, real Web3. It's a scam. Don't get involved in this. That's just my 2 cents. All right, I think we just wrapped up news and notes there. We've got Nate waiting in the waiting room. Do you guys have anything else to add before we cut to commercial break?
Yes. As always, use promo code BMLive and get 10% off your Bitcoin Amsterdam tickets. Guys, we're actually winning this competition, but we cannot slow down. This is actually really cool, and it's turning into like a thing here at the office, and I'm loving this. So please, please, please do it for the children. The 3 of us are the children. They will just take us away. You will never see our faces again. They'll put us in an undisclosed location, and you'll never hear from us again if you don't go right now and buy a ticket to Bitcoin Amsterdam using the promo code BMLive.
And if you don't want to do that, you can use BM Live at the Bitcoin Magazine store to get one of those lovely copies of the Bitcoin Magazine, as well as we got some awesome new merch and art in the Bitcoin Magazine store. Use BM Live for 10% off your order. We will cut to a quick commercial break, and then we'll get Nate in here for an awesome discussion about the Lightning Network. See you guys shortly.
You are listening to Bitcoin Magazine Live. Listening to Bitcoin Magazine Live. Number one Bitcoin Magazine Live. You are listening to Bitcoin Magazine Live. Listening to Bitcoin Magazine Live. Number one Bitcoin Magazine Live. Sama.
What is up, guys? Thank you for sticking through that commercial break. P, can you give a proper introduction again for our guest that you gave about 30 minutes ago?
So I am very, very happy to welcome Nate Beef for Bacon to the show. He is a Lightning Network expert. He was part of the original crew that helped build out PlebNet, and he is someone that has always been so generous with his time. Whenever I was having issues with my node and I didn't understand some very, very nuanced aspect, I could always reach out to him, and he was super generous and was like, "Oh yeah, let me help you through that." He also is part of the team at Voltage, who are doing some really interesting stuff with the Lightning Network and the leasing of nodes. And I'm super excited to have him on the show. Nate, welcome.
Guys, so happy to be here. Q, we never met, but hopefully we get to hang out soon. P, we go back a while though. And yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me on.
Absolutely. What would you add to the introduction that I just gave for you?
I mean, that's about it. I'm just a pleb that, libertarian, got into Bitcoin right as the Lightning Network was really kind of coming out and everyone said I had to start a node. So I figured might as well go all the way and do Lightning and on-chain at the same time. But Lightning is what really struck my interest way back in the day. And I taught myself Linux command line stuff to get through it. And I was working a normie job back then. And then now I'm working in what I love. So I'm stoked to talk about anything you want to talk about.
Amazing. Can you go into a little bit more your journey to Bitcoin and sort of what about Bitcoin captivated you initially, and then what led you more specifically into the Lightning Network?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I guess so. So for just me personally, I probably went down the libertarian rabbit hole in college around 2010. I joined a poker club, and turns out everyone there was libertarian, and they taught me a lot. I read Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt and went down the Rothbard train. I was a big Gary Johnson supporter in 2012. And then sort of after college, I hit sort of like that lull where it's like, I don't know what I want to do yet. So I didn't really have an income or anything. I was always watching Bitcoin though. I watched Mt. Gox happen. I watched everything happen. I told myself, if Bitcoin can recover from this, I'm going to dive right in. And as soon as I was actually making a decent income, I dove right in to Bitcoin after that, started learning more, got the Bitcoin Standard. I think that was like my first Bitcoin book, even though I was into Bitcoin before that came out. And then I was on Reddit at the time, and they said, yo, you need to like get your funds off the exchange, get a ledger, get a Trezor. And then the next thing was start a node. So my first node that I was running was the Raspberry Bolt, which was a Staticus. If no one knows, it's an awesome project where you build your own Raspberry Pi Lightning node from scratch on command line, but they give you like the step-by-step process to do that. And then I just sort of fell in love. My first thing I bought with Lightning was stickers from the Blockstream store, and it just blew my mind because I no longer have to put in, details about credit cards and all this stuff. So I could go on from there, but that's pretty much kind of where I'm at. And then Graham, the CEO of Voltage, hit me up in September because earlier that year, my daughter was born and I had a little bit of time off from work. That's when I spent a lot of my energy doing PlebNet and doing free Lightning node consulting, because I've been doing it for like almost a year at that point. Where it was, and then it was really taking off about a year and a half ago. So I put a lot of my time in that, and the CEO of Voltage caught wind of that. So in September of last year, he offered me a job to head support and education at Voltage, and I've been there ever since.
That's awesome, man. One of the other things that I think is really interesting is that you've been running a profitable Lightning node for a very, very long time, and it basically, for everyone that that doesn't know, when you're participating in the Lightning Network, you can be just a person who is utilizing the Lightning Network to be able to send Bitcoin, essentially, for very, very low fees and essentially instantaneously. So Strike and lots of wallets that are pretty popular use the Lightning Network to be able to do that. And you can do that. You don't have to understand anything about the deep, nuts and bolts of the Lightning Network. You could also be a merchant who is interested in accepting payments via the Lightning Network. And then there are certain constraints you have to understand. And then at the far end of the spectrum, there's people that are crazy, or for whatever reason, they want to really understand how the sort of like, all the deep structures of kind of the equivalent of like a telecom network operate. And so if you want to do that, you can run your own Lightning node, and it's actually far easier than most people think that it would be. And then you can come to understand that. And so you have to adjust your fee structures because you're getting paid as people are routing through your node in the network. And so it's a very competitive environment. And so when people are able to, even like a tiny, with like 10 cents or a day or 10 cents a month or whatever, being able to be profitable is kind of a mark of success, because you are competing in this environment where there's massive entities, like a Strike or, all these large exchanges that are actively trying to do the same thing. So even when it's a tiny amount, it's a significant achievement.
Absolutely. And, back during the PlebNet days, that's what we were really kind of trying to do, maximize throughput and then see what kind of fees we can squeak out. And we talked about things, and we could dive into the details here, but we talked about things, we have channels that drain, and those are the channels that you can increase the fees on to and those will be your primary sort of fee generators. But what really blew my mind was when Lightning Pool came out by Lightning Labs, which was this blind marketplace where if you've been running a node that is good for the network, and the network is built in a way where your node is, you can easily sort of tell if your node is a benefit to the network or not. And nodes that are beneficial to the network, their channels are worth more than channels from nodes that aren't beneficial to the network. So Lightning Pool was like the first, like, oh, cool, wow, there's like another way to monetize because you're running a good node. The channels from your node are now in demand to a point where people are willing to pay for that. And that took me down a whole other rabbit hole. But yeah, running a node is really cool from that perspective. And now you can effectively lease a channel to somebody for a time period, and then you can also collect fees on that channel simultaneously. So there's like multiple ways now to sort of monetize your node if you're taking care of it, and it's high quality.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, just for the broader audience, when we talk about the Lightning Network, it is a layer 2 technology that sits on top of Bitcoin, which is, on-chain transactions layer 1. And, Bitcoin transactions prioritize, settlement, security, and a lot of other things, decentralization, disintermediation of the, process of money transfer. And in order to have sort of confidence in a transaction, you have to wait approximately, at least one block. That's about 10 minutes for a on-chain Bitcoin transaction. Whereas Lightning Network transactions, which again sit on top of layer 1, as I said, happen essentially instantaneously. And the way that works from a nuts and bolts perspective, and Nate, please jump in anytime I say anything that you disagree with, is, if I have a Lightning node running and Q has a Lightning node running and Nate has a Lightning node running, we open what are called Lightning channels to each other. So you make an on-chain transaction that creates a kind of a collaborative channel that exists between two nodes. And then you can kind of push sats back and forth on these channels. But the real power of the Lightning Network comes when you start to have this larger network. So if I have a 100,000 sat channel with Q, and I want to send sats through to Nate, I don't actually even have to have a direct connection to Nate. As long as, in this example, this very limited example, Q has a channel to Nate, I can route those sats that I'm trying to send to Nate through Q's node. And then over to Nate. And in order to do that, I pay Q a very small fee for being able to, for facilitating that transaction. And so that's kind of the overall way the Lightning Network works, but it becomes really powerful when you imagine it like a giant spider web. There's, tens of thousands of nodes in the Lightning Network, and they're all interconnected. So you have this massive web of these Lightning channels, and your node basically runs these calculations to figure out what is the most efficient way that I can route through the entire network. And then it makes that transaction, and your payment kind of ping pongs through the entire network and eventually gets where it needs to go. So that's kind of a high level overview of how the Lightning Network works.
Yeah, that's awesome. And now we've got almost 15,000 nodes with at least one announced channel to the network. You don't have to announce your channels if you don't want to, but that's how we get this data. So it's growing a lot, and that's pretty much all a channel is, right? It's in your example, Q's node isn't paying me through that channel you have with him. It's paying me through his channel he has with me. So it's effectively like, you're giving me $5, I'm putting it in this hand, and then I'm taking $5 out of my pocket and giving that away if I was the routing node, and then putting that other 5 in my pocket. And then it's just that 15,000 times.
Yeah, absolutely. And the tools that one is able to use in order to make this process more streamlined, more efficient, are getting better and better and better and better. And 3-4 years ago, there weren't any of these extremely functional, iOS and Android apps that you could use. Again, you don't have to understand how it works. All the information I just imparted to you, you don't even have to understand that. You can just download an app like Moon Wallet. That's MUUN. You can do this in Blue Wallet. There's Wallet of Satoshi. There's all these different applications that you can use, and they all use slightly different custodial models in order to do this. But if you're interested in learning about it, there's no better way than to kind of dive in and just start getting your hands dirty.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, I'm really curious for you. How have you seen the Lightning Network kind of evolve over the years that you've been involved, that you've been playing around with it?
Right. Yeah. Okay. So when I first came, the only mobile wallet available was the Eclair wallet from Async, and on this wallet, it was a full Lightning node on your phone. You had to manually open channels, and it sucked your battery out of your phone pretty fast. But it was still awesome. And so we've now got to this point where it's like, okay, we said, okay, if you want to run a Lightning routing node, and your motivation is you have maybe some capital in cold storage, some Bitcoin in cold storage, you want to maybe play around with these, maybe selling channels, building up a node for the network. That's one way to go about it. Another reason to either run a node, or we'll talk about, I'll bring up mobile wallets here in a second, is that maybe you actually want to buy stuff. Like, it's a lot easier now to use your Bitcoin to buy stuff, and sort of maybe slowly reduce your footprint in the traditional debit Visa banking system, right? There's a lot of motivations there. Maybe you don't want to have your credit card numbers exposed to certain people or whatever. So some great examples of my favorites, I'm just going to put out. Bitrefill is awesome. They have bill pay now, so you can pay like credit card bills with Bitcoin, stuff like that. There is KYC on that. They do gift cards also. There's Pay with Moon, not to be confused with MoonPay, which is a shitcoin company, but Pay with Moon is like virtual debit cards, and you can buy a precise amount. So if you order a pizza, it's like $23.94 or something. Go over there, hit $23.94. It'll give you a Visa, a credit card number. You just pop it in, buy your pizza, and then there's a new-ish company called the Bitcoin Company, and they actually do physical gift cards. So you can buy a physical gift card, pay $1 for shipping, and they'll ship it out to you. So there's like really cool ways to sort of like spend your Bitcoin now. And a lot of these wallets are when I say wallets, I mean like mobile apps that you can use with Lightning. Wallet of Satoshi, Blue Wallet to an extent. Some of these are fully custodial, meaning you don't want to put a lot of Bitcoin on these devices. But if you want to see how fast and cool the Lightning Network is, it might be a good start for you. I personally like to recommend Phoenix these days, which is a non-custodial Lightning app, and is sort of like the Gen 2 async wallet after Eclair, which was Gen 1. And then the Moon wallet, which you brought up, the MUUN wallet, is also really, really cool. So there's a lot more options now to sort of play with, which can be a little bit daunting, but you can get your feet in little by little and take it as far as you want. But yeah, I mean, try it out. Buy a $20 Amazon gift card on Bitrefill or something. Anyone out there that hasn't done it yet, it's a lot of fun.
Love it. So we have two questions from one of our viewers. The first, it basically is, how do you optimize your Lightning channels? And I actually want to say Nate has a fantastic YouTube clip that goes into sort of how he thinks about starting up opening a new node. And that's the wrong term. Spinning up a new Lightning node and then opening channels, which I highly recommend. Nate, how can people find that video?
Gosh, I have so much content out there now. I'm not exactly sure which one you mean. I've got some videos on the Voltage YouTube. I have a lot of blogs and guides on the Voltage blog now. I did a pod with Stefan Livera that might be useful to help out with that. But that's a really big question, and I get that question a lot, and it's just a kind of a long discussion because the word optimize can mean a lot of things in Lightning. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure which one you're referring to.
Yeah, let me actually phrase it slightly differently. How would you best answer this question? What resources would you recommend for people that are trying to understand how to optimize their Lightning channels? And I also, as you answer that, Open Water Swim also had a second question, which was, what is the benefit of balancing channels? Like, why is that important as well? So yeah, what are the best resources that you'd recommend out there for people to get interested?
Cool, I love it. So yeah, I definitely recommend the Voltage blog. I do have a lot of really, really cool guides on there, and I do have a couple videos on the Voltage YouTube. As far as the optimizing channels, so in my opinion, sort of everybody who runs a Lightning node in a serious way sort of has their own little strategies and stuff. We might actually disagree. So this is just my opinion. Just want to preface that. But I want a channel to do either two things. I want it to flow with the network relatively evenly, meaning that payments that are going through the network are going through my node, and that channel isn't getting like the worst thing it could do is to get all the way to the outbound side and get stuck there. That is, and so there's a couple ways to not mitigate that, but like try to solve that. If it's with a peer that has a lot of channels also, you can go to their Amboss page, amboss.space, and see what peers they have channels with. And maybe if you open up a channel with it's so hard because it's really you have to sort of experiment. But if you have any channels that are stuck in the outbound state to a peer that should be flowing through, then I would try to figure out who are they connected to. Is there a path to them? Balance of Satoshis is a great tool for this, where you could customize probe out through different nodes, so it can get kind of advanced on that. But what I like to do is I like to try to get my channels, each one individually, to either route both directions, or I want to open up a channel to a destination or to a peer that I know that the demand of the network is going to that peer, because then I could charge a higher fee rate for that channel because it's going to a high demand destination. So that's how I optimize those channels specifically. That's about all I'm going to add for that sort of generalized topic, even though I can get more into it. And what was the second part?
Oh, it was a question around rebalancing. Like, what does it mean to rebalance a channel, and why is that important?
So in traditionally, a rebalance is, let's define balance first, I guess. A lot of folks say a balanced channel is a channel that has half the capacity on one side and the other half the capacity on the other. And the reason why it's a good idea to keep it close to that ratio is so that the throughput of that channel can go in both directions. So what might happen is maybe it'll go one way or another, and then you have another channel on your node that's the opposite. So say you have a lot of outbound, you have another channel with a lot of inbound, and maybe that channel with a lot of inbound, if you shifted some of that outbound to it, you might be able to increase your fees. That's sort of it's called a circular payment or a self-payment also. And you got to be really careful with that because you're sending a payment out to the network that's coming back to you. So all those hops out in the network will probably take a fee. And the good news is, the fee beforehand, at least on Balance of Satoshis you do, and on Thunderhub you do. So you can do the math to say, okay, is the amount that I'm going to pay for this rebalance going to at least have me break even if the channel is when it drains again, how much fee rate do I need to put on that channel for me to like not lose money? There's no point in doing a rebalance if you're going to lose money for it. So that's my opinion on that.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic explanation. And as Nate was kind of referencing, this is where I've said this before, but where it becomes this like almost like a real-time strategy game where you're trying to identify these areas, these parts of the Lightning Network that are liquidity kind of like black holes. They're just constantly are having payments sent into them, and then there's other ones that are constantly sort of sending payments out from them into the network. And so you're trying to find these environments where you can kind of exist in between those two, and then get those payments routed through your node, because anytime somebody routes through you, you get you get sats. But then you have to figure out there's only a certain amount you can route. So then you have to figure out how to get those back, in the sats. Go ahead.
Just to add to that real quick, a lot of folks are like, gosh, I don't have a lot of Bitcoin. Can I like still run a routing node or whatever? Yeah, you can. You can run a cool little routing node with you don't need like 3 or 4 Bitcoin. Some people have that. You can have 10, 20, 30 million sats and have 10 to 15 really cool, really good channels of like 1 million sat capacity. And there's no problem with that. And the primary goal of it, of a node that doesn't have like a ton of capital, is like you were alluding to, you try to find a niche of the network that's not being utilized as much. It's kind of like building a new road between 2 intersections that doesn't exist yet, but if it did exist, would be in high demand for traffic. And there's ways to do that, but that's a good goal for gamifying your node a little bit.
And I'll also say, like, there was a very, very brief ephemera where I was slightly profitable in the Lightning Network. But for me, I run a Lightning node not because I expect to make a bunch of money, but because I want to learn how all this works, and because I want to support the Lightning Network overall. And so I wouldn't want somebody to go into this thinking like, all right, I'm going to earn a shit ton of money. You know what I mean? It's a really, really important thing to understand, or it's very valuable to understand, I should say. And so that's how I would go into this if you are interested in doing this.
Very few people in the world can do this, and the trajectory of the Lightning Network as far as popularity and recognizability and just normal businesses in the world is growing. So it doesn't take a genius to know that maybe learning a thing or two might put you in a really nice position in the future. So it's a low time preference thing for sure that's not only fun now, but could pay off in the future for people.
Absolutely. Okay, let's shift over and talk about sort of some of the current events that are going on. And also, I would say, if there's anything in particular that you are excited about that you want to like really dive into and chew through today, let's do it. But I think the biggest...
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, one thing, there's a couple things I'll throw out there. I'm really curious if you have thoughts on kind of the tornado cash situation and the sanctions that are going on. I'm curious if you have thoughts about, Taro and kind of the work that Lightning Labs is doing there. And I'm also curious on kind of the work that Voltage is doing in terms of making it easier to manage, one or a large number of nodes. But truly, anything that you are excited about, let's dive into it.
Yeah, I guess I could talk about any of those topics for a long time, but I'll talk about Voltage just real quick. In my opinion, up until Voltage, if you wanted to run a node, you were kind of if you wanted to use Lightning, let's say, you either have to do these mobile apps, right? But or build out a computer, a Raspberry Pi, learn how to install stuff. And one of the big issues there is if you're a hobbyist, it's kind of okay. Like, I highly recommend people build their own nodes. But if you're looking to run a Lightning node because maybe you have an internet, maybe you make cool clothes or something somewhere out in the world, and you want to be able to like sell your clothes to the global market, it's really, really hard to do that in the traditional system. But if you have Bitcoin, uh, all of a sudden it unlocks a lot. So um, uh, that's just kind of one use case, but I want to talk about because uh, with Voltage, your node doesn't go offline. We host it in a data center, and you get support, BTC Pay server, which connects to your Shopify, your WooCommerce. So what Voltage is trying to do is have that, and I'll dare I say enterprise grade infrastructure, which is true for Lightning nodes in a non-custodial way, right? Because that's been the big gap. We have like really, really like non-user friendly, run your own node, figure it out yourself sort of thing. If your power goes out or your internet goes out, you can't use it anymore, which is really, really bad if you're running a business and that's the back end of your point of sale system. And the other hand, you have like a custodial KYC thing, which is great for what they do, like OpenNode or anything like that. But there needs to be something in the middle. There's like a little bit of a trade-off, right? Where, it's hosted somewhere else. But one of the cool things about Voltage is it's non-custodial. We don't have direct access to funds, and we don't see what you're doing. It's encrypted client side, which means that we don't store your password, which decrypts access to your node. So really, really interesting business, in my opinion, that our CEO Graham thought of and put together. And we're adding new features and stuff all the time. I really encourage anyone just can make an account on voltage.cloud and just play with it. No KYC or anything. And any questions about Voltage for that? I just want to answer any questions on that.
No, I mean,
it's
I think
LND
Voltage is
right
very
now.
cool.
We have CLN soon. We've
And-
just added LN bits, and Thunder
nice.
Hub is also available directly in the platform. You don't have to install it, nothing like that.
Nate, I got stupid questions for you, but could you define those things for the less technically savvy folks here?
Oh, the things I just said. So Thunder Hub is a open source platform, sort of I don't want to say platform. It's like an open source tool that's fully GUI, gives you a cool visualization of all your channels. You can set fees, you can open channels, close channels, send funds, whatever, in a nice GUI way. Tony from Amboss built Thunder Hub first before building Amboss, and now Thunder Hub is like under Amboss because Amboss is their company. So we have that built into Voltage for those who are managing their nodes, so they don't have to install that separately. And then we also have LN Bits, which is another tool by a gentleman named Ben Ark. We launched recently in Voltage that will allow you to do cool things like really easy point of sale, Lightning address, really developer sort of tools. So Voltage has a lot of features that various types of people would want to use. Like developers really like to use Voltage for Lightning apps, and because we have APIs, you still have access to the LND gRPC connections, a lot of stuff like that too. So we are really trying hard to simplify running a Lightning node in a in a very reliable fashion with our dashboard and with our hosting.
And then I think can you describe the different Lightning protocol implementations? You mentioned Eclair and CLN.
Yeah. So there's the big three and then a fourth now. But the big three is LND by Lightning Labs, and LND is probably right now the easiest to use. That is what we primarily use at Voltage right now. They focus on usability, right? They have GUIs and things like that. And then there is Blockstream C Lightning, which is now called Core Lightning or CLN, which is sort of a power user Lightning implementation. They use what do they call them? not widgets, plugins. They use plugins for different sort of features they can use with your core Lightning node, like accounting or just other things that developers or users might want to use. And then there's Async has Eclair, which is focused primarily on the non-custodial mobile Lightning node, which Phoenix is their primary app. And then Spiral, which I guess is an offshoot of what's it called? It was Block and then Spiral. I don't remember. It was Jack Dorsey's thing. Anyway, they do the Lightning Development Kit, which is a tool for developers who want to actually build their own Lightning implementation, but not have to like build everything from scratch. So for those that don't know, a lot of apps and stuff use what's called libraries, which is sort of like prepackaged code that you can just sort of put into your project, so you don't have to write it yourself. And that is what the LDK is for. So right now, John Cantrell is using LDK for Sensei, which is a really cool implementation idea. And I think Cash App also uses it.
Yeah, I think they do. Very cool.
That's it right now. Yeah.
Love it. Q, did you get your question answered?
I have other like silly,
Yeah, let's go through
sort of low hanging fruit questions. Like we throw a lot of these phrases
Shotgun
out,
question.
and like I'm not going to tell you which questions I actually need answered and which ones I know the answers to save face a little bit. But I will start by saying I do understand what I'm about to ask, but we talk a lot about like Lightning is layer 2.
Mm.
What the fuck does layer 2 mean? And could we equate it and give examples back to like the current internet infrastructure and how we interact with that to make it digestible? Because I found that explanation is most helpful, but also like go nuts and tell me to fuck off.
Yeah, no, okay. That's perfect. So the internet is decentralized information. Bitcoin is decentralized money. So when the internet was first, being put together by the geniuses 40, 50 years ago, or however it was, they had they were just excited to pass bits and bytes to different college campuses. None of them had any idea of music streaming, video streaming, what we're doing right now. None of that was possible. Different protocol layers had to be built on the internet, on the TCP/IP protocol. And I'm not an expert on it, but what we're doing right now is interacting with, I think, 5 or 6 layers of that base internet protocol. And that increases things like throughput, bandwidth, and quality, all that kind of stuff. So the internet is this layered cake that you can sort of visualize. And there's really, you could Google internet protocol layers, and I'm pretty sure some cool graphics for that. And Bitcoin, only a little over 12 years old now or something. Layer 1 is great. It's very secure. It's very it's immutable, censorship, all this really, really cool features and stuff. But the throughput has a problem if you impose global finance on top of it. So cryptographers, there's layer 2 is this idea where you can do Bitcoin transactions without having to fill the blocks, right? But like jam up the pipes of the base layer. We can do it we could still have that security apparatus in a way, but also get the instant settlement and finality without having to interact with that. So Lightning Network is one proposal of that. Blockstream's got something like they call it the Liquid Network, where you're basically just transfer Bitcoin off of the Bitcoin base layer. You're not actually doing that, but just it helps visualize it, and then interact with it in this like sort of side area before coming back. Lightning similar but different on that, because Lightning is more has this sort of node gossip network system. So it's just about taking the same concept that worked for the internet and applying it to this new money. Because Bitcoin is the money of the internet, but it's also the internet of money in that respect.
Love that. Can we also just explore the I don't know what the best way to describe it. I'm just going to call it a phrase that you see sometimes pop up on Bitcoin Twitter of like, oh, Bitcoin is my savings account and Lightning is my checking account. Like let's unpack this, because I don't think people like, and what I really want to eventually get to is the importance of what Jack and Strike announced at B22.
Sure.
Because I think there's a disconnect with like what actual the impact of that can be.
Yeah, that's I actually use that analogy myself when I am talking to folks. So once you buy Bitcoin, this is sort of like not all new Bitcoiners go through this process, but I think a lot of them do, where they buy Bitcoin. They say, cool, I've got Bitcoin now. And then they say, oh, I have to put it into cold storage because I don't want to sell it. I'm convinced that, it's going to go up in value, but I also am thinking about long term. So I'm going to learn how to use cold storage. You put it into cold storage. I think that a lot of folks that I talk to inevitably ask the question, what do I do with it though? And that's kind of why I like the idea of helping people maybe buy a gift card on Bitrefill and stuff, because it can expose them to using Lightning. And you don't want to have your entire cold storage, aka life Bitcoin savings, in a Lightning setup. There's no point to that if you've got $10,000 worth of Bitcoin and you're only going to spend $100 on Lightning every month. There's no point in having all $10,000 in a Lightning phone app or even your node, really. Unless you go YOLO like some of us did. But if you think about it that way, you sort of maybe once a month you open up a channel that maybe you don't want to really dive into the whole routing thing. You just want to use your Lightning node because it's cool and fun. Use it as a checking account. You can access your node mobilely using Zeus, for example, which is this cool open source interface with your node that you could take anywhere with you. But yeah, you just open up a channel to a well-connected node with the amount that you expect to spend during a time frame, and that's sort of like your checking spending money for the month or the week or whatever. And I think that's a really cool way to think about it, and I encourage that.
I'm loving these questions. Q, keep going.
P, do you have anything to add to that? You could jump in too.
No, I think you did a great job.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
How you know my struggle here, Nate.
I want to add on to that real quick. So
Please.
My buddy Paul Miller, I work with at Voltage, right? For those that don't know, follow Future Paul on Twitter. He's great. I had this idea where it's like a lot of folks, when they start a routing node, the hardest part is getting that inbound liquidity. It's really easy to open up a channel and have a bunch of outbound liquidity, right? But you need to have inbound liquidity also. And we were talking about channel balance earlier, but node balance is important. Add up everything, right? Add up all your channels. What percent is outbound? What percent is inbound? And in my opinion, you got to be at least a 70-30 ratio on that if you want to run a good routing node. But the thing is, if you're not in a rush and you have low time preference, and maybe you do want to pay your electricity bill using Bitcoin on Bitrefill or something, it's really easy to use a phone app, right? But why not use your own node? Because when you open up a channel and make a payment, that the capacity of that channel goes from outbound to inbound. So now you got this inbound liquidity, which you could only get really. There's a couple ways, but like the easiest way is to have somebody else open up a channel with you. Well, no one's going to open up a channel with you if you're brand new. Usually you have to build your reputation up a little bit. But if you slowly start spending out of your channels on things, now all of a sudden you've got inbound liquidity, maybe after a month or two of just like spending it. And so we developed this concept called Live, Laugh, Love. And I can hear my coworkers laughing in the background already. So step one is live, right? So use your node to live, but not actually live, but like buy stuff, right? That increases your inbound. And then the laugh part is now you have all this inbound liquidity. Now you're actually a routing node all of a sudden. because you're opening up a new channel every now and then. You're paying through it. Now you've got some inbound liquidity. And then the last part is, now that you've got some inbound liquidity and you're a decent little routing node, you can go someplace like Magna, which you guys talked about with Joe. And now the channels that you open, you can actually get paid to open. So it's this really cool sort of little cycle. So that's a really cool way to bootstrap a Lightning node if you've got low time preference, and you can learn along the way without having to worry about, oh crap, I need inbound liquidity right away. You can just kind of make your own inbound liquidity over time. So I wanted to bring that up. So that's all.
It's great. One of the things I like about that acronym, I guess, is that it matches the tattoo that I already have on my lower back that says in cursive, live, laugh, love. So now, I feel real solid about that tattoo.
That was Paul's idea, because I made this sort of like circle of life sort of thing where it's like open channel and then like spend funds, get inbound, sell channel, and then it kind of like goes through. And then he called it the live, laugh, love, or live, love, laugh, or whatever it was.
That truly is amazing. And I want you to know how loudly I laughed while my mic was muted over here. I didn't want to interrupt the story, but that was gold. I have one question, and you will think I am kidding, but I am completely serious when I ask you this. So, Nate, I actually don't typically live in Nashville, but I'm in Nashville right now, and P, I'm going to dox you, is also down here. So we are actually going to go get tattoos later this afternoon. So I want to know, what should P and I get as matching tattoos today?
I'm thinking like a Bolt 12 offer QR code.
Dude, that's something I want to talk about. Remind us to talk about that. But no, dude, I don't know. How about run nodes? I don't know. I'll be in Nashville next month.
You got to hit
I
us
will
up.
not be.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to do like run nude instead. And then maybe I'll do I do love that sticker though. The voltage sticker that says run nodes is dope. You guys
glows in the dark, so it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
I still stand by getting P's face tattooed on mine, like a little teardrop, just teardrop P. But moving on. We've heard P allude to how many millions of Bitcoin he lost when he tried to set up his original Lightning node.
Me too.
I want to
Bitcoin. That's right.
Both embarrass P as well as just like have, I think, a come to Jesus moment of what are just the mistakes people do when setting up a Lightning node, because I feel like P has scared me to a point where I may never be comfortable setting up a Lightning node.
How dare you besmirch my good name, sir?
It's all P's fault. I am not an adult who can make my own choices and decisions on my own. I strictly operate based on what P tells me to do or not to do.
These are all lies.
So, running a Lightning node, putting Bitcoin in channels isn't entirely riskless. There are a lot of theoretical issues that can pass up, and they're theoretical, but they're totally possible at the same time. Like attack and loot attacks, and like they're all theoretical right now because no one's experienced it really in the wild yet. But there are things out there that could possibly happen someday. So it's important just to keep that in mind. It's probably really not likely, but some people would say it's more likely than I think it's likely. But number one thing, when you start a Lightning node, you get a seed phrase. Don't lose your seed phrase. Do exactly what you would do with cold storage. Get a Bitfodal or a crypto steel or whatever it is you do, and put those seed words somewhere. One of the big things is folks don't actively download, at least on LND, their static channel backup file, which is a very, 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 very small file, but it has all of the updated commit transactions for your channels, which is important because if your node breaks, then you need your seed words to recover the on-chain part of your wallet, but you also need your static channel backup to broadcast all the force closed transactions so you can get the money back from your channels. Now, there's talk about better ways to have backups than what we currently have, but this is the current way we do it. So if you don't have that static channel backup, you have to wait for your peer to initiate the force close, which who knows how long that could take. So my first node, I have the seed words, but I did not do the static channel backup as often as I should have. And I still have 8 million sats floating around out there. that I hope someday will be force closed, but they probably won't be.
Thank you for your sacrifice.
Yeah, right. So I mean that's one of my big tips, I guess, when you start. The other is if you do get force closed on, you just usually gotta wait a couple weeks, and that's not a bug or whatever. That's a feature, because if you go offline and your counterparty broadcasts an old transaction that says that they have more sats than they actually do, you need you would like to have a time frame to get back online so you can contest that old state that they're broadcasting. So it's important, to have that feature, even though it's inconvenient when for some reason a force close happens. And sometimes your peer doesn't know the difference maybe between a force close and a cooperative close, and they accidentally force close it, and you have to wait for some sats. But just don't freak out. There's usually a reason for everything on that. And that's pretty much just a couple things I have. I don't know if you encountered anything on that.
No, I think you hit the main ones. I think that reviewing all the incredible resources that are out there is a huge part of that as well. I think, you mentioned the Voltage blog and the stuff that you've put out. BTC Sessions has a number of great videos. I would recommend people join Plebnet.
The Plebnet wiki is mwah.
Yeah. So if you go to plebnet.org, that will take you to the Telegram group where there's thousands of people now that basically are all asking questions. And the other thing I would say is, I know you're mostly joking, Q, but like no one should feel stupid asking these types of questions. Like this stuff is super complicated at first glance, and it can feel really, really intimidating. And don't let anyone make you feel like, you're stupid or like you shouldn't be asking these questions, because that actually is the thing that will prevent you from learning. It's like, just throw yourself in and be like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. You'll go far with that approach. It certainly helped me a lot.
We're on the edge of the cutting edge. It's you got to remember that. There's no dumb questions on that. It's like calculus was just invented and we're learning it. Yeah.
I like that, because to be honest, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier, like everything we're doing, quite frankly, is just made up. Like if it wasn't made up by us, it was made up no less than 10, maybe 12 years ago tops. So very much everything is new here.
Yeah, and if if the Lightning Network can actually fulfill the dreams of all these people and it keeps growing, then gosh, we're so early. It's mind-boggling how early it is. Like if things like Taro like really take off, like it's insane.
Could we unpack that statement though of like the dreams of Lightning Network? Like let's start with where sort of best case, even some unimaginable use cases for Lightning that like in your deepest desire wishes, like I want to see Lightning used in this capacity in this way. I'll start with a personal dream of mine that I think will become a reality very soon. Someone needs to just fucking make this. I am not capable to make this, but I want a sports betting platform, okay, that lets me make in-game bets live over the Lightning Network so that I'm able to cash in and out quicker. And the fee that is being collected by the actual platform that's hosting these bets is not indicative of the Visa fees and taking a cut out of my winnings, but rather just like a small little Lightning, a few sats here or there for each bet I make. So someone go make that for me.
Ellen Markets, you have your next project. That's awesome. Gosh, I don't know, like a lot of fun stuff. So like I like to play games. I would like to see more indie developers, video game developers that are making like these indie games that are like 10 or $20 on Steam, but are really, really good, incorporate Bitcoin in some way. I know that, Thunder and Zebedee are making these cool little phone apps and stuff, which is great as like a proof of concept. But I would really like to see some actual indie developers, teams of like 20 people, like build some cool apps, or not apps, build some cool games that, on PC or whatever that would incorporate sats in some way. I can't really think of somehow, but I think that would be really, really neat. On a bigger scale though, I want to see the Lightning Network bring down the walls of bordered finance. I think it already is, and I think over time it's going to go in that direction. But that is really, really exciting to me, is seeing that slowly happen. And a lot of folks don't see it, but I go on calls with people all the time that hear about Voltage. They have a web store, they want to set up BTC Pay, or they have a shop somewhere in the world that they want to accept Bitcoin. And I help many people out every week over this, and you just don't hear about it. So a lot of people are like, Lightning Network isn't growing, nobody's using it, yada, yada, yada. But I'm talking to people all the time that want to incorporate it alongside their traditional fiat ways, but having it as an option is becoming a bigger, I mean, you got, there's so many reasons to do it, right? There's these credit card transaction fees. If you run Clover or Toast at a coffee shop, it's 50 cents plus 3% on your $4 cup of coffee. Stuff like that needs to change. And Strike is actually awesome because you could pay these invoices with dollars. So I really am excited to do that. I think a lot of what we need to do, I think too much time is spent on the big picture political situation, where all we need to be doing is getting to know our small businesses and slowly just orange pilling them and talking to them about Bitcoin and making friends with people. The grassroots is the way to go. That's my focus. So when I go out, I go to the butcher or go to a new place, I ask them, hey, you guys ever think of accepting Bitcoin before? And they're like, no, I'm not interested. Or they think, oh yeah, tell me more. And that's all it is. And you're planting the seed in their head anyway. So you might as well just bring it up in casual conversation. I think that's really, really important. Farmers markets, things like that. I don't know how I got off into that tangent, but I feel like
I love this tangent. Keep going.
I feel like the global, like, like if you're in a strip mall, right? And you're the only shop accepting Bitcoin, you get one shop to do it. Everyone else in that strip mall knows each other. So they're going to be asking questions now too. And I really think that eventually there's going to be this cascading effect where it's just all the dominoes fall over. And we're not there yet, but I really, and I think all the dominoes are going to fall over from the big macro stuff, world, I mean, probably private banks, whatever. I'm not really interested in them, but they'll probably get in on it eventually, hopefully as late as possible. I want to get the grassroots people in on it first, and the local things. What Mike Atwood and these folks in Austin are doing is amazing. There's many restaurants and businesses in Austin that accept Bitcoin now. They might not be running their own node. It's probably OpenNode or something, or IBEX, but it's still it's happening on a local level. So I see people that aren't into Lightning, probably have never used Lightning before, saying crap like nobody uses it. Complete nonsense. It's growing every day.
Yeah, that always is hilarious to me when you talk to people and they're like, I mean, it doesn't even work. Nobody's using it for anything. And you're like, when was the last time you tried to use the Lightning Network? And they're like, 2015. And you're like, well, first of all, it didn't exist then. Second of all, the fuck are you talking about? Go try to use it today.
Yeah. So.
Okay, wait. I want to unpack a couple of things here. Firstly, I love these analogies of going to a farmer's market, because let me tell you, I got so mad when I tried to buy just one pupusa at my local farmer's market back in LA, and they legitimately tried to charge me a total of 10% on the cost of the pupusa just to use my credit card. And the irony of it all was the fact that it was a Square credit card reader, and I really wanted to just be like, yo, Jack, come on, guys.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Do you think there's a world where, Square, given Block's mission, starts to just very quickly and easily assimilate Lightning payments into credit card reader? Is that a realistic path forward, or is this really going to be Lightning is going to cannibalize and take away the entire payment infrastructure that is the credit card payment rail?
Maybe someday the credit card companies will pivot in that direction, especially as businesses realize that they can, a lot of businesses operate on a really thin margin. So if they can widen that margin a little bit, why not at least try? And the really cool thing is, accepting Bitcoin, the infrastructure is actually very, very simple. The challenging part that businesses have is if they need to convert it to fiat on the other end, which isn't built into something like BTC Pay Server. Yeah, but I don't know. They might. I think it all depends on market demand, right? I mean, if we still theoretically operate in a free market, the best needs to eventually win out, and it's still early days. Lightning Network has only really been around in a working way and for a little over 4 years now, so it's gonna take some time. But I'm fully dedicated to the idea of just I really think it's going to be a hockey stick sort of curve on Lightning adoption, where we're going to grind it out until it eventually hits that cascading point and takes off. And then before you know it, these payment processors and stuff are going to realize that if they don't get in, they're going to be left behind. I don't know when that'll be, but it seems like the trajectory we're going.
I am totally going to admit I got distracted by the picture, the still image of me that looks like I got destroyed by the blip. But I do want to address what might be my favorite comment in the chats today, and it's genuinely the strip club comments. So like, are we going to be throwing open dimes at the strippers, or are strippers going to need to get like more QR codes, or like where does, especially for these like smallest denomination, like the last vestige of cash payment is the dollar bill I hand to the stripper?
This is actually great, because this is one of my biggest annoyances with the Lightning Network. Now, we've talked about a lot of positives. I'm going to talk about one of my annoyances. By default, the invoice system of the Lightning Network, the Bolt 11 invoice system, is a pull payment, meaning I, as the receiver, have to generate an invoice before you, as the payer, can pay me, which is totally different from Bitcoin. Bitcoin, you just pay an address and it goes, right? So it's really hard for, in this example, a stripper to generate an invoice while she's dancing. That doesn't work. So Lightning Labs and just Lightning devs start out with this key send. So key send is a QR code representing your node's public key, where you scan the key send QR code, type in how much you want, and it pushes the payment to the node that you're paying. There are a few downsides with key send, which is why now there's many other sort of ideas that some people may have heard of: LN URL, LN address, Bolt 12, all these different ways. And like, what's really sort of annoying me lately is we need to have a standard on how we're going to do push payments. I think I don't want our poor stripper to have like 4 or 5 QR codes all representing different ways to tip. So whether it be a tattoo or a piece of paper hanging off the stage or on a TV screen above or something, there needs to be a way to do that. So I'm not sure how that's going to work though, but hopefully we can come up with a standard soon.
So I want to also just throw out another thing, and I've genuinely started noticing this when I go just to local mom and pop businesses, but consistently I've been seeing anywhere from 3 to upwards of 5% discount, with the promise of, if you pay in cash, we'll essentially pass along that discount that we would have otherwise gotten from the credit card by having to fulfill this payment through the credit card rails. There's also the caveat though that, with cash, you can maybe skirt how much you actually made. Where, like, this is, in my opinion, the greatest opportunity for Bitcoin and the Lightning Network to really be utilized and showcased, because so many small businesses are hurting. How, in your best assessment, would Bitcoiners infiltrate this, while at the same time, like, my genuine concern here is when I see these businesses do it, like, there is a part of them that is like, I'm going to write $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 less on my tax returns. It's easy to do that in cash. You really can't. Like, you could, but it's all public. Like, you could see these transactions on Bitcoin. And so theoretically you couldn't, but where am I wrong in that statement? Where am I right? And how do we onboard these small businesses?
Yeah, that's sort of a cloudy situation for sure. Because even with cash, you need to put it in a safe or under your mat. You got to put it somewhere. It's not invisible like Bitcoin's invisible. So Bitcoin's a lot safer than cash because you can't get robbed very easily. And I guess there's a few other reasons for that. I went to what I've been noticing recently is the vast majority of gun shops and ranges are privately owned, and the vast majority of them also give a discount on paying with cash. They don't want chargebacks to happen when they sell you a firearm. And I talked to a lot of gun shops over the last few months, and they are very interested in Bitcoin, which I think is really cool. I'm actually working on a side project called Bitcoin for Gun Shops that I'm working on for fun. But like, I think like there's certain businesses that are just like primed for a Bitcoin point of sale system. But to get back to, how do they, they can report it as dollars. I'm not a tax accountant or anything. I can't really help on that. So, but there's nothing wrong or illegal about accepting Bitcoin. You just report the dollar amount, as far as I know, and keep it on the books if you want. But yeah, farmers markets also, if you sell a zucchini for a few thousand sats, it's up to you if you want to report that or not. But yeah, it's really up to the individual. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it does. I mean, there's very clearly this opportunity for Bitcoin to just sort of slide itself into the day-to-day lives of every individual. It's
Yeah.
just finding those opportunities, and they will be different for everyone.
I mean, no chargebacks is huge. No chargebacks, but you don't have to worry about carrying paper everywhere. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy to me that is, I don't know, that is a normalized thing that basically at any point, like 6 months from now, the person who purchased a thing from you can call their credit card company and basically say like, they did me wrong. They did me dirty.
Or it was stolen or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, who loses? The business loses.
Exactly.
And they did nothing wrong. It's dumb.
It's pretty wild. Let's talk about, my understanding is that you had some thoughts about the show we did recently. I believe Joe's sort of analysis of the Lightning Network. Q, you want to sort of cue that up a little bit more, and then we can dive into that. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
You're muted, I'm muted like P, but it's cool. I'm unmuted now. Essentially, the long and the short of the conversation we had with Joe last week was there's a way to introduce a risk-free rate and more or less introduce a credit rating system within the confines of the Lightning Network. Like, I really appreciate the work that Joe is doing and finding use cases to essentially have the current financial system better understand and better, I think, digest what it is we are building here in Bitcoin and how they can interact with it on a cleaner and more direct pathway. And I'm just, because I do not want to misquote this, I have too many tabs open as always. We'll start with where is it? Oh my God.
You got this, Q. I believe in you.
We'll start with the risk-free rate, which essentially starts at, at the very bottom of the risk curve. There we go. Nope. This is really fun.
What is happening right now?
To be honest with you, I just can't find this tab. And I found the tab. Thank God. All right. Risk return. Cold storage Bitcoin is the lowest amount of risk, the highest amount of return. Joe talked a lot about how the highest amount of risk and highest amount of return would be sort of on the off-chain lending side when individuals lend, and then sort of found different points on this sort of risk return curve that he created where LNRR, LN liquidity, and Taro also sort of make up the in-betweens between cold storage Bitcoin and off-chain lending. The theory here essentially puts sort of how much you want to put your Bitcoin at risk and what is the reward ratio for doing so. I truly thought it was fantastic. I'm not sure if you saw this chart, how you felt about it.
Yeah.
But I want to actually start with my first question of it. Are these type of things necessary? Like, do we need to pander to current financial institutions when everything that they have done and designed is actually rooted in failed theses that will inevitably lead to the collapse of everything that we know and love?
I agree with that. I think that the incentives of this new bridging marketplace of Lightning, where you work, because it's not like you just drop sats in and reap a yield or whatever. It's a business in a lot of ways. You got to put a little bit of work into it, and then you have to have that that ability to market your node with how well it's doing. And there's ranking tools and things like that right now. So you can earn as much as you sort of put in a lot of ways. It's really hard to maximize your income through selling or leasing channels or routing fees without having some decent capital to start with. But I really am interested in the concept that bigger institutions or just bigger node runners start a business somehow. I don't know how they would do this. I'm just kind of spitballing here, where they want to provide liquidity to the Lightning Network, and they use other people's Bitcoin to be the capital for their channel leasing. And then they keep a percent and then pay back a percent to whoever handed over their Bitcoin to do that. That's really interesting. I don't, because the risk is so low, but by the same token, you can't necessarily lose any money. The worst you could possibly do, assuming there's no like catastrophic bugs in Lightning or something, the worst that could possibly happen is that you break even or lose the sats that you paid the on-chain to transfer to. So that's kind of cool. I think as the fiat price of Bitcoin increases, that prospect grows with it, where, you know, if a million sats is suddenly worth, I don't know, $10,000 or something, you give a million sats, they open up a million sat channel, have a fee of whatever percent, 2 or 3%. No, I mean, not even that, maybe like 1%, whatever. You know, I'm not doing really the math, but you know, that's probably like $500 or something. I could be wrong. I don't know, but it's something, right? And I think that's interesting. And the incentives are cool because your capital is going to be allocated towards areas of the network that are in demand. So it's better for everybody using the Lightning Network at the same time.
So let's unpack, and I want to see if this curve is, or sort of the order in which he follows, aligns with
I
what you're.
remember it a little bit.
I mean, I'll just read it off. Like,
yeah.
for example, he has cold storage Bitcoin being the least risky.
Uh-huh.
The next level up is LNRR. The next level is Lightning Network liquidity lease. Then Taro asset lending, and then finally off-chain lending.
Okay. So LNRR, is he just talking about, I guess that's just collecting fees,
Mhm.
routing fees.
Yep.
I don't see how leasing would be riskier than that. The only downside with that is these contracts on Magma and stuff, you are penalized if you close this channel before the promised time frame. So if you promise to have this channel open for at least 5,000 blocks and you close it down after 2,000 blocks, the network or anything, your node is fine, nothing else is affected, but your reputation on the platform in which this market happened that you might get a ding on your account, so other people see this mark that says, oh, he once has a failure rate or a success rate, whatever they decide to do, I think it's going to build out into that. So you have a risk of losing that reputation, but a risk to your capital is just as low in my opinion. And again, that risk is only really coming from the possibility of catastrophic failure of your hardware or some unforeseen gigantic, I don't know, attack of some kind. But I think that's really, really low chance of losing funds there. And then Taro and lending is interesting. I'm not an expert like Joe is on this, really. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, lending, like, maybe that was kind of like what I was saying before. You give funds over, and then they try to get that channel lease profit, and then give you some. So yeah, that's definitely risky. Anytime you hand over custody of your funds is risky. So I generally agree with that curve.
All right, Joe, you survived another day.
I just don't understand how the fee rate and the lease selling is different. I would say that's about the same risk. It's my only
Makes sense.
contention.
Cool. Then I want to get a sense of just what are the attack vectors here. Like you touched on, and it doesn't necessarily need to be like a directly on the Lightning Network, but we saw a lot going on over the last week, and we're still seeing the developing story with Tornado Cash. Like, what are the attack vectors against the further advancement of the Lightning Network?
Yeah, I mean, the worst case scenario is all the governments get together and say you're going to the gulag if we catch you doing this stuff, right? So I guess that's one end of the spectrum, and that's the least likely. I mean, these state actors and stuff, they can slow us down. They can, kick and scream as they drown. That's how I look at it. But it's like, even if something catastrophic like that happens, I'm still not going to have any regrets at all, because this revolution of freedom of finance is one that's worth fighting for, and it's more important than any of us individually. And I've got no regrets dedicating everything I have to Bitcoin and furthering out what I find most interesting about it. And I think that there's a lot of great thinkers in the Bitcoin world that have their own specialty, and I'm really happy to do what I can to help people out individually and things like that. So I think that the trend that the world is going in, from the ECB to all that stuff, is a pretty negative trend. But by the same time, business owners and stuff are going to go use things that I think will benefit them the most. And if the fiat they're using is melting and they can't put food on the table, they're going to switch to a better money. But I can't predict the future on that. We can just keep building and build as much as we can. I know that the fear of open source devs being targeted by governments is kind of freaky. The IRS thing is kind of freaky. If I don't know what's going to happen with all that, but we just got to push through. I think it's going to be brighter on the other side, and I don't think this train is slowing down.
I'm a little disappointed that you actually can't see into the future. P promised me that I could ask you a few questions about some bets I was going to make, but I guess there's no point since you can't see the future.
I thought he had more power than he does. Apologize for getting your hopes up too high.
Yeah, I'm really optimistic long term. Short term, I'm just seeing what happens. I'm in Texas. I'm in the freest place that I can get, where my wife will let us live. So it's all good.
Yeah, for sure.
But
we
yeah.
didn't get a chance to really go into tarot, did we?
I mean, my opinion on tarot is pretty basic. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing, but it's essentially if there's a market for it, that's awesome. As a Lightning node runner, I want to see more throughput so I can collect more fees anyway. So Godspeed, good luck. As far as like world implications and stuff, I think it's too early to tell. I think the media and the articles and stuff that Lightning Labs has put out is extremely interesting. I know that as soon as Taproot was pretty much confirmed to be part of Bitcoin Core, they went straight into Taproot because Taproot's on LND now, and that's a big part of Taro also. So even though Taro's not strictly a Lightning Network thing, it's going to be an on-chain thing too. So I'm interested to see where Lightning Labs is going with that. I'm saying a lot because I don't really know. I don't really know. I'm excited. Tell you what, though, I'm going to do exactly what I do with everything, and that is as soon as it comes out, I'm going to install it and play with it. Even like I'm a tinker, so even if it's something I'm not directly going to use, I'm excited to sort of play with it. So hopefully we get beta or something next year probably, and get to play with that a little bit more. But I mean, there's a lot of really cool things coming out though. So on the horizon, at Voltage, we're building a node analytics tool that's going to be customizable and help Lightning node runners make decisions like channel balancing and stuff at a glance. And that's going to be for everybody, not just Voltage users. But it might be monetized, so don't get too excited on that. But it's going to be really good for enterprise node runners and stuff. And we're really trying hard to help automate running a node based on specific user types like merchants and stuff, because merchants don't care about routing. They just care about having quality inbound. So stuff like that we're doing. I don't know why I pivoted to that over Taro. I just don't really have a very strong opinion on Taro because I haven't got to play with it yet.
Not only it was that, but it was a hard pivot to just a nice shill for Voltage.
Yeah.
I'm just giving shit.
No, I think it's going to be awesome. You guys
No,
are
for
going to
sure.
like it.
Well, is there anything else that you want to discuss today, as we kind of wrap up here? Anything we didn't cover?
Gosh, we covered a lot, didn't we?
We did. It was a great conversation.
I want to say that another Voltage thing, I guess. We're actually doing a webinar workshop today at 4 p.m. Texas time. If you want to join in on that, it'll be a live thing. We're just going to do like an overview of the platform. We're going to be doing this more and more. It'll be on YouTube later, so follow the YouTube channel, the Voltage YouTube channel, and watch that. So we're going to be doing stuff like that. Gosh, no, guys, I feel like we covered a lot. P, I don't know. How's your node doing, man?
Well, I have a secret node that I've been running since I moved, but I don't have a public Lightning node that I have up and running. I need to, invest more in the care and feeding of my node for sure. I haven't been able to do much with it these days, but yeah, going good, man. I really want to explore CLN and dive into.
We need to get you running one.
Yeah, we do.
These are facts you speak. I will not
Absolutely.
lie. I cannot tell a lie.
But
I do want to ask you, Nate. P, can I hijack this for the end?
Sure.
Can I do the end stuff now? Okay, cool. When you think of Amsterdam, what do you think of?
I've been to Amsterdam.
I have not.
Amsterdam 2016. I went in January and the sun never came out, but it was a super fun time. There's a place called Beer Fabriek, BIER Fabriek. If anyone's going, they have really awesome chicken and fries and beer and stuff. I know that doesn't really sound that great, but it's like insanely good. The Heineken brewery is pretty fun. If you want to do something touristy, it's actually really, really fun. And there's lots of other cool little things about Amsterdam. Hopefully it hasn't changed too much. I know it's been kind of wonky politically with the farmers and everything. But when I went 6 or 7 years ago, it was a lot of fun. I traveled a lot in Europe. But Amsterdam's super fun. If anyone's going, please check it out. Other things other than just your conference, which I know is going to be awesome. I probably won't go, but
Boo.
I know.
Is that if there was anyone either currently listed speaker for Bitcoin Amsterdam or someone that you really want to see speak, because mind you, all speeches will be made available on YouTube. We will be streaming.
Who's some headliners already? Give me some headliners so I don't like.
Oh no, Q, you walked yourself into this one.
I walked myself into this one. So we got Adam Back, we got Odell, we got Gladstein, Pedro, Pierre Rochard, Ray Youssef,
Pierre, that's cool.
Alan Farrington, Giacomo, Philip, Prince of Serbia as well.
Hmm.
Knut Svanholm. I hope I pronounced your last name, Knut, correctly.
Yeah, he just has to take his canoe down the.
He's just gonna go down the canal.
Right? I forget. I might be totally off on that.
No, you're right. You're right on that.
Okay. Yeah, gosh, that's an interesting question. Dude, Adam Back's awesome. He was at Bitcoin Plus in Austin, the developer conference, just hanging out with us. I actually hung out with him and Thaddeus Drya, who was one of the writers of the Lightning Network white paper, at the same table in the hotel. It's just surreal that you go to these conferences and you get to like run into these people and talk to people. But no, gosh, I don't know. That sounds pretty good. How many are we expecting? What percentage of the Miami conference are we expecting to be in Amsterdam so far? If you don't mind.
Yeah, no, I'll read you the exact most recent ticket count numbers right now. It was.
Sweet.
P, I was really hoping you were going to bleep me out there.
Like that, you dig yourself deeper and deeper and deeper.
I like the idea of Bitcoin. In a way, I don't know how. I don't have any example, but I'm pretty sure the Netherlands is like somewhat anti-Bitcoin in a lot of ways. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but it's kind of cool going into the belly of the beast if that is true. Like, you should have had it in Brussels. Like, that would be hilarious.
That would actually be pretty funny. For context, to explain,
like right across the street from the EU. Like,
there you
perfect.
go.
Yep.
But no, I think that's a
friends.
cool idea. I don't know who thought of the idea of making it more of an international conferences, but I think Europe's a good spot to have it. So that's cool.
You heard it here. It was a good idea. So therefore, you should go and buy a ticket and use promo code BMLive to get 10% off.
All right. Nate, thank you again so much for joining us. Really appreciate your time and all the work you've done on the Lightning Network, helping people understand it. As we talked about, I would encourage everyone to explore the Lightning Network more. It is not nearly as daunting as it seems, and there are a ton of incredible resources, many of them published by the man himself, Nate, who is in this call.
If you want to contact me directly, at beef4bacon1 on Twitter, or if I don't see my DMs, we have a Discord, voltage.cloud/Discord. I'm much easier to reach on there.
Awesome. My friends, we will see you all tomorrow, same time, same place. Until then, peace.